Hello friends, and welcome back to another episode from Annie's Arms. Today's video is going to be a brief one where I discuss my practices for magazine maintenance. So there's three primary materials that magazines are made from. They're either a polymer or polymer-coated magazine, like this Glock magazine, aluminum, like this Colt AR-15 magazine, or steel, like this MP5 SP5 magazine. In any industry where you're dealing with maintenance, there are 2 to 3 schools of thought. One is being proactive about the maintenance, doing it at regular intervals or before certain things. The other one would be on condition or potentially reactive maintenance. So there's probably some nuances between on condition and reactive, but basically you're not doing the maintenance until you have to. Me personally, I try to be as proactive about any problem that I can. Whether it's cleaning my magazines, whether it's changing the oil in my car, or the transmission fluid, or the brake fluid, I really try to be as proactive about any problems that I can be so that they don't become bigger problems. So for me, my cleaning interval is either once a year. I live in Michigan, and our winters can be cold and dreary, so I'll sit in front of the TV, watch a movie, pull my mags out, and clean them. Or before a firearms class or competition. Obviously, if I had 2 classes back to back, I'm probably not going to clean those same sets of mags at that close of an interval. But if it's been a year, or maybe it's been 6 months and I've shot a couple thousand rounds through some of the mags, I would probably clean them before a class or an event. So for me, I do things proactively as I can because I want them to function. I'm not worried about the little bit of cleaning time or cost and supplies. I'd really rather just keep everything running as good as it can. So then when it comes to cleaning, how do I do that, and why have I settled on the process that I've settled on? So for cleaning, my primary cleaner, both magazines and my firearms, is odorless mineral spirits. It's very cost effective, it's cheap, and it works really well, especially when you stay on top of your firearm maintenance. There are some times when you buy a used firearm that hasn't been maintained the best, or you find that magazine that's escaped cleaning for many years. And I have found some CLPs with a good chemistry that really helps get at some of the really baked on, hardened crud. Other CLPs don't seem to work as well, but I have found a couple that do a better job of cleaning than an odorless mineral spirit. That being said, odorless mineral spirits are always my first cleaner and my first go-to. CLPs can be expensive, so I'd rather get a magazine or a firearm 90% or 95% of the way there with a CLP, with an odorless mineral spirit, and then if I run into the really heavy caked on, cooked on stuff, I'll then transition to a CLP to get that last 5 or 10% because the CLPs are expensive. That's my logic. As far as cleaning the inside surfaces of the magazine, most magazines come apart pretty simple. There's a little pin at the bottom of the base plate, whether it's the Glock mag or a Beretta 92 mag or a AR-10 Magpul mag. You push in on that base plate or that locking feature, and then you can slide the base plate off. For my friends with MP5s, AP5s, SP5s, the process is a little more intense. And if you're struggling to take them apart, I do have a MP5 mag disassembly tool that I offer on my website, anniesarms.com, to help make that process a little easier. So once I have the magazines apart, I've got two ways that I might try to scrub the inside with the odorless mineral spirits. One option is the long Q-tip. The head on this guy is almost 3/4 of an inch, and you can see width-wise it works very well for kind of getting into those crevices and really being able to scrub and get in there. With the short Q-tips, sometimes you can only reach about halfway and it just doesn't work as well. The long Q-tips can be a little on the pricier side in comparison, but they do work well. What I've also done a few times is this outside will get absolutely disgusting, and so I've actually taken a little bit of a razor blade, trimmed it, and then kind of peeled off the outside disgusting layer, and you can kind of get a use or two out of each Q-tip that way. Because they're on the more expensive side, and sometimes I'm on the cheaper side, I won't always use these, but they are handy to keep around at the workbench. The other method that I tend to do a little bit more, because it's cheaper, I believe the scissor things are called forceps. They're about 1 foot long, and they have a little bit of a ratchety locking mechanism down here at the bottom. So I'll take and fold up a paper towel, or the blue shop towels really work the best. They stay together better. The white paper towels will kind of fray. Fold it up, get it in there, lock it down, and then again, odorless mineral spirits, and then get inside the body of the magazine very well. What's nice about this approach is you can also kind of reuse it a couple times. You can unfold it, refold it, and then a lot of times you have a very clean or almost new surface that you can then use for the next magazine. So once I've scrubbed with the odorless mineral spirits, I will then go back with a clean Q-tip or paper towel and make sure I dry that surface. For no other reason than I really just don't like odorless mineral spirits or any kind of chemicals kind of staying on, or cleaning chemicals staying on the surfaces. So then we get to the point where the decision-making process of to lubricate or not to lubricate comes into play. For me, I've got two criteria, or two categories of magazines. Polymer and aluminum magazines, I really don't lubricate. The why is the loading that we have in the magazine takes place between the follower and the body of the magazine. The loads there and that contact area, the loads are low and the contact area is high. I've already done my job of reducing the friction in the magazine by cleaning it. So I'm not worried about the lubricant in the magazine needing to be there to prevent wear or reduce friction. It doesn't really matter. Aluminum, sure, it can corrode. Aircraft corrosion is an issue, but it's not going to rust and get gross like our steel magazines can, nor the polymer mags. So for these guys, once I've cleaned it and dried it, it gets reassembled and it goes back into its storage bin. On any of my steel mags, regardless of the coating, I will always lubricate it, but what I'm focused on is a lubricant with good rust and corrosion properties. I'm not worried about the lubricant having extreme pressure or extreme anti-wear properties, because all I'm trying to do is protect that metal and keep it from rusting. That's it. The oil that I offer on the website is a pretty good application for that use case. The grease that I sell on the website, although it is an excellent rust and corrosion inhibitor, I don't care about the ability of the grease to carry a heavy load or prevent wear, because I'm not worried about that in the magazine. All I'm worried about is rust and corrosion. So for oiling or lubricating a magazine, I'll follow a similar process to cleaning. I'll take a fresh Q-tip or paper towel and forceps, get the head nice and saturated, or the paper towel nice and saturated, and then rub it all inside the magazine, making sure that it's fully coated. Then what I'll do is I'll take a new clean paper towel or Q-tip and run it in there as well. And so that's in that second act, what I'm trying to do is get rid of any of the excess oil or grease if I'm using that. I've done it before. It's fine, but again, it's the intended application doesn't need what the grease offers. So that's really where I default to the oil. It's cheaper and it's doing the task that we want it to do and not a whole lot more. So with it coated on the inside, I then take a clean Q-tip or a clean rag and then make sure I kind of sop up or suck up the additional lubricant that's in there. So the oil that I've got on the website, again, it's an industrial oil, but it's formulated with good rust and corrosion protection, as well as polarity and an additive pack that help keep it attached to the surface. So even if I coat this mag and then leave it vertical for a long time, the oil will actually still stay on that surface. It's not going to run down because it will stay attached and attracted to the metal. So you're also not going to rub it off with using a clean Q-tip or a clean rag on the inside of that surface. You're not going to really remove it once it's there. But we do want to pull up any excess, because what we also then don't want is enough oil or enough CLP that's inside that mag to then find its way to our ammunition and deaden those primers or affect the powder burn. The other reason that I go to this heavier viscosity oil versus a very light fluidy CLP is I want to try to avoid the capillary action as much as I can. And so a capillary action takes place between two bodies in very close contact with one another, and lower viscosity fluids will tend to wick their way and penetrate between cracks. And a lower viscosity fluid can do that better than a higher viscosity fluid. So the other benefit to using a higher viscosity base oil when we're lubricating and protecting our steel magazines is we're also really limiting that potential for the oil to get in between the primer or between the crimp on the bullet and affect the ammunition's performance. The lower viscosity in the creeping oils will have a higher risk of causing issues with your ammunition. So hopefully you found this short video helpful. Hopefully it explained why you might have heard don't or never lubricate your magazines, and why you may have heard you should always lubricate your magazines, and some of that decision-making process, pros and cons between that. So thanks for watching. See you next time.